Nancy,
Yeah,
it's 6.
we ready?
Do we have
Okay.
Kitty on?
Yes.
All right. I'm calling the meeting to order on March 13th at 6 o'clock. And Mrs. Ballmiller will do the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, adequate and electronic notice of this meeting has been provided by posting on the bulletin board in the Beach Haven Municipal Building, on the borough website, and mailing the same to the Beach Haven Times, the Asbury Park Press, and the Press of Atlantic City. Mr. Batista?
Here?
Mrs. Ballmiller?
Here.
Ms. Lambert?
Here.
Ms. Snyder?
Here.
Mayor Davis?
Here.
Cash receipts in the current fund account for the period of February 1st to February 28th, 2023 were $3,247,425.39. Cash disbursements in the current fund account for the month of February 2023 totaled $3,605,678.01. And the cash balance in the current fund for this period totaled $17,324,865.45. Cash receipts in the water utility account for the period of February 1st to February 28th, 2023 were $116,562.24. Cash disbursements in the water utility account for the month of February totaled $166,992.51. And the cash balance in the water utility account as of February 28th was $4,866,005.00. I have minutes for approval tonight without formal reading. I'm just presenting the January 26th, 2023 agenda meeting minutes. I was not able to finish
Is
the
there a
next
motion?
set.
to approve that?
Thank you.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion approved. Thank you. Ordinances.
All right.
Let me just hold on a second. Let me just get Kitty.
Sorry.
Thank you, Kitty.
Thank you.
There you
sorry.
go.
Thank you.
That's okay. Ordinance 2023 4C, an ordinance amending Chapter 74, Sections 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18, Construction Codes Uniform in the Borough Code of the Borough of Beach Haven, County of Ocean, State of New Jersey, to increase fees for building permits in collaboration with participating construction interlocal municipalities. Final reading.
This is final reading. So is there anybody on council that has anything to say about it? No? Well, then I'm opening it to the public. Anybody want to speak to this ordinance? Anybody on Zoom?
Anyone on Zoom who wishes to be heard in regard to ordinance 4C can raise an electronic hand and we could call on you.
Anybody?
Seeing none,
Okay, is there a motion?
Motion to approve 2023-4C.
Second?
Second.
Mr. Batista?
Yes?
Mrs. Ball-Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Lambert?
Yes.
Ms. Snyder?
Yes.
Mayor Davis?
Yes.
Ordinance 2023-05, an ordinance of the Borough of Beach Haven adopting the redevelopment plan for Block 11602, Lot 3, and Block 170, Lot 2, within the Borough of Beach Haven, County of Ocean, State of New Jersey, to adopt a redevelopment plan for the Queen City East, Brennan's Fuels, and Queen City West, Foster's Farm Market with developer Michael Pagnotta. Final reading.
Again, does anybody on council want to speak to this? I think there was some confusion earlier. This doesn't mean that Mr. Pagnotta, if this is passed, he'll meet with the Architectural Review Committee before we go forward with this. This is just another step in redevelopment. Is there anybody on the council that would like to say anything regarding this ordinance?
I would. I'd like, I spoke to Emily Givens about this, and is she on Zoom tonight?
Yes, she is
Yeah, and
on.
Emily, hi, I hope that you will speak to the public about this so that they understand that this is not a final passing of this, and that this is just where we stand with this, please.
This is just approving redevelopment.
Yeah,
It's
I would
not,
like Emily to speak on it just because she said that she would, and I think that just,
Sure.
thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Can
go
you
ahead.
hear me?
Yes.
So with this redevelopment plan, it adopts the zoning as an overlay, which means that in order for any redeveloper to utilize that zoning, they must first enter into a redevelopment agreement with the borough. And the detail of that redevelopment agreement, along with the zoning and his land use approvals, will govern the construction of the project and the operation of the project. Until a redevelopment agreement is agreed upon and authorized by mayor and council, no development project can go before the land use board. And part of what happens through the negotiation of the redevelopment agreement is that the project will go to the Architectural Advisory Committee, and it will be reviewed there. The recommendations will be made, and then certain, down to the color of the facade, could be negotiated. So materials and other concept issues will be included within that ultimate redevelopment agreement. And so that is where the detail of the project will come into play, not at this redevelopment plan. So, but without this redevelopment plan in place and adopted by the Borough Council, we cannot move forward with a redevelopment agreement.
Thank
This
you.
is, as Nancy said, the next step. So if anyone has any questions, please let me know.
Thank you very much.
okay. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak to this? This is a public open session on this ordinance. Anybody on Zoom?
Anyone on Zoom wish to be heard regarding ordinance 05, redevelopment plan? You can raise an electronic hand. Seeing none.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve ordinance 05?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Mr. Batista,
Yes.
Mrs. Ball Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Lambert,
Yes.
Ms. Snyder,
Yes.
Mayor Davis.
Yes. All right.
Ordinance 2023-06, bond ordinance authorizing various improvements to pickleball courts by and for the Borough Beach Haven in the County of Ocean, State of New Jersey, appropriating $250,000 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $238,000 bonds or notes to finance part of the cost thereof. Final reading.
I'd like to make a
Again-
motion that we carry this to April 10, please.
Is there a second to carry to April 10th?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Ordinance 2023-07C, an ordinance supplementing Chapter 212 zoning, Sections 18 administration by the addition of Section 18.1 zoning fees in the Borough Code of the Borough Beach Haven, County of Ocean to increase zoning fees. Final reading.
This is the final reading. Anybody on council want to speak? We've already talked about this, but does anybody want to council? Okay, so it's open to the public. If anybody wants to speak about this particular ordinance in the public regarding zoning fees on Zoom? No?
Seeing none.
Is there a motion to approve 07C?
I'll approve 07C.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Batista?
Yes.
Mrs. Ball Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Lambert?
Yes.
Ms. Snyder?
Yes.
Mayor Davis?
Yes.
Ordinance 2023-08C, an ordinance revising Chapter 194-3 of the Borough Code of the Borough of Beach Haven concerning the sale of products such as Kratom and Delta 8 and related paraphernalia to clearly define where paraphernalia can be sold. Final reading.
Anybody on council have any comments before we
No.
vote? Anybody in the audience or Zoom have any comments on this particular ordinance regarding paraphernalia? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Motion to approve 2023-08C.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Batista?
Yes.
Mrs. Ball Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Lambert?
Yes.
Ms. Snyder?
Yes.
Mayor Davis?
Yes.
Ordinance 2023-9C, an ordinance amending Chapter 55, Article 1, Conduct on Beaches, Section 55-9, Tents and gazebos prohibited in the Borough Code of the Borough of Beach Haven, County of Ocean, to more clearly define what shade structures are permitted on Beach Haven beaches. First reading.
This is,
It's the first.
yeah, this is the first reading, so it isn't open to the public. I think we altered this a bit so that there has to be, we had a big discussion last time, anchors on the umbrellas,
Mhm.
which would create a much safer environment. So if the wind did take them, they wouldn't they wouldn't move very far. So basically, does anybody on council have anything to add to this particular ordinance on the beaches and umbrellas and structures?
Yeah, I just want to, I'm curious because we have kicked this around ad nauseum, truthfully, trying to find out the best way to keep it as an equitable, fair thing. So when you come down to the beach at 1 o'clock, there's a spot for you and the oceanfront isn't blocked by somebody who's been down there since, 8 a.m. with their professional concierge. But we've also known that, the size of the canopy, the umbrellas. So, I mean, this is still early days. If you have something to say, I would like to hear it because, once we go forward, then the complaints come in, like, well, why did you do that? Well, this is where we really want to hear from you and get your input. Thank you.
Anybody else on council have anything to say about this?
What is the anchor for the,
It's just something that ties onto the end of the umbrella so that if it has a weight on it or whatever, and if the umbrella starts to
It's a
blow.
corkscrew.
It also has a
Into the bottom
screw
of the pole, and it
and it screws into the
goes
ground.
down into the
Yeah,
sand.
it anchors the umbrella so it doesn't get it. Most people, a lot of people that come down here that aren't, regular beach, they don't know how to insert the umbrella into the sand, and it can be dangerous. So there are a lot of the umbrellas you buy now, it's like a screw on the bottom and go around and around. But they can also use other things. But it is, it's been something that's been around for a long time. So this is not open to the public, but if anybody wants to talk about it in the public discussion, you can. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Batista?
yes?
Mrs. Ball Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Lambert?
Yes.
Ms. Snyder?
Yes.
Mayor Davis?
Yes.
Ordinance 2023-10, calendar year 2023, ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank, NJSA 40A:4-4514.
This today is
This is final
the
reading.
adoption, final
Yes.
reading. So this will be open to the public, and does anybody on council want to discuss this? No?
Nope.
Anybody in the public or Zoom, in the room or Zoom would like to talk to this particular ordinance?
Again, anyone on Zoom, if you wish to be heard, you have to raise an electronic hand and we can call on you and request that you unmute, okay? Thanks. Seeing none.
None?
Nope.
None? Okay, is there a motion to approve ordinance 2310?
I make a motion, we approve 2023-10.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, great.
Mr. Batista?
Yes?
Mrs. Ball Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Lambert,
Yes.
Ms. Snyder,
Yes.
Mayor Davis.
Yes.
Ordinance 2023-11, an ordinance authorizing the private sale of certain property owned by the Borough of Beach Haven, not required for public purposes pursuant to NJSA 40A:12-21. The purpose is to convey a small portion of property to the Beach Haven Volunteer Fire Company for expansion of their facility. First reading.
And that, just to explain to everybody, in the past, we had given the property between this building and the fire company. There's a pretty good easement there. And the fire company needs a bigger bay for their large hook and ladder truck. And Mike knows more about it than I do. But so we had given them permission to do this, and they haven't gotten around to it. And there was a time limit on it. So now we're just extending this so that they've been looking at other options. But so if they decide to build out so the larger engine can fit into this bay, they still can do it. That's all this is about.
So the language of it also says that if they complete the construction of the new facility and they don't need this piece, it will revert back.
Back to us. So it's either going to be for the fire company or for us. And this is not open for public discussion. So is there a motion to approve this?
Motion to approve 2023-11.
Thank you. Thank you, Kitty. Mr. Batista?
Abstain?
Mrs. Ball Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Lambert?
Yes.
Ms. Snyder?
Yes.
Mayor Davis.
Yes.
Ordinance 2023-12C, an ordinance amending Chapter 2, Administrative Code, Section 20, Department of Beach Patrol, in the Borough Code of the Borough of Beach Haven, County of Ocean, to establish fees for the junior lifeguard program. First reading.
And just to explain to everybody out there that we have a lifeguard and training program here that's very successful, and it provides us with great lifeguards in the future. We're the only municipality on the island that doesn't charge a fee for this. So we are going to charge a fee for this. It brings a little bit of revenue into the coffers and helps with the beach patrol and the maintenance of the beach. So that's all that's about. Anybody on council want to discuss this?
Now, we had a meeting today. Kitty, Sherry, and I met with Chris Essobil. Is that how you pronounce it? Very interesting. And it's amazing how many lifeguards we get from this program. So it's essential we keep it up. But the fact that they were taking from our lifeguard budget to provide for this lifeguard and training, and everybody else on the island was charging, it just seemed a prudent thing to do.
I agree.
Is there a motion to?
And it just makes sense. And it's not a lot of money. You know, the fee is in line with everyone else and maybe a little less.
True. So is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Mr. Batista?
Yes.
Mrs. Ball Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Lambert?
Yes.
Ms. Snyder?
Yes.
Mayor Davis.
Yes.
All matters listed under item consent agenda are considered to be routine by the municipal council and will be enacted by one motion in the form listed. Any items requiring expenditure are supported by a certification of availability of funds, and any item requiring discussion will be removed from the consent agenda and discussed separately. All consent agenda items will be reflected in full in the minutes. Resolution 53, approving the certified list of eligibles for the Beach Haven Volunteer Fire Company, number 1, for the 2022 LoSAP program. 69 is permitting sidewalk sales for this year. 70, consenting to the issuance of amusement licenses for Fantasy Island, MG3 through MG12. 71, authorizing Beach Haven to participate in the National Priority Safety Program, known as Cops and Shops. 72, returning remaining escrow. 73, approving change order number 1, final, dated January 31st, 2023, for the Beach Haven Library lead remediation with Lou Environmental Services. 74, awarding a contract to Core and Main LP for the 2023 Water Department parts. 75, acknowledging the hiring of Edward Delova as a laborer in the Department of Public Works. 76, supporting Toms River Township's opposition to and urging modifications to the DEP proposed settlement with BASF Corporation concerning the environmental damage to the Sibagagi Superfund site. 77, returning piling bonds. 78, returning dumpster bonds. 79, returning remaining escrow. 80, refunding performance bond and inspection fees. 81, approving change order number 1 dated March 6th, 2023 for the 2020 stormwater pump stations on 7th Street, 12th Street, and Pearl Street, and drainage improvements. 82, acknowledging the appointment of Mary Claire Bunce as Secretary for the Historic Preservation Advisory Commission. 83, awarding a contract to Weatherproofing Technologies, Inc., otherwise known as Tremco, under the ESCNJ and approving an expenditure in amount not to exceed $266,000 for the replacement of the old police station roof. 84, acknowledging the hiring of Joseph Zielinski as part-time building inspector trainee. 85, authorizing the execution of an agreement between the Borough of Beach Haven and the Beach Haven Volunteer Fire Company number 1 for use of the fire sirens. 86, amending a shared service agreement with Harvey Cedars for court administration services, Schedules A and C. And 87, awarding a contract to Capella Construction for the 2023 bulkhead replacement project, Pelham and Pearl Streets.
Is there anybody on council that would like to remove any of these items for further discussion?
Nancy, I'd like to remove 53-2023 only because I'm going to abstain to that.
Okay,
Which one, Mike?
53-2023, first one on
Oh,
the,
the very first one. Okay. Any others?
I just have a comment on 70-2023, and I was wondering what the fee is,
for what?
the amusement license.
For Fantasy Island.
Yes.
Can you give us that?
I don't have the application.
I meant to ask you this afternoon. I
Yeah.
forgot.
It's in.
It's not going to affect my vote on it.
No, it is, I would say for those games, it's like 200 a game, and there's 9 games there.
$1,800. Is
Are
that the,
these fees established by us, or is there something that the county or the state does to
So
determine?
these games in particular are like carnival games. They're
Uh-huh.
not arcade, they're not video, they're like carnival games.
Right.
And they are licensed individually. They pay one fee to legalize games, which I think is 200 a game. And then based on the classification of game, we also set fees by ordinance.
Okay,
The arcade games are extremely costly. These are, I think, a little less, and there's less of them.
I read a very interesting article a couple of weeks ago in Wildwood. They have these games, and that somebody was cheating,
Yeah.
and they were blowing up these basketballs with too much gas so that nobody could get the basket. And this person got a $10,000 fine and 10 years suspension of running any kind of carnival act in Wildwood. Very interesting article.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think Fantasy Island does a great job, though.
Yeah,
So,
I'm sure Fantasy
we're
Island
just
does.
we're removing the first one. And so do we have a motion to approve the rest?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second?
I'll second
Second.
it.
Thank you. Mr. Batista?
yes?
Mrs. Ball Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Lambert?
Yes.
Ms. Snyder?
Yes.
Mayor Davis?
Yes.
And then we'll look at Resolution 53, 2023, approving the certified list of eligibles for the Beach Haven Volunteer Fire Company number 1 for the 2022 LoSAP.
Mike, you wanted to remove that for further
I'm
discussion.
going to abstain.
Because you're abstaining. Okay, gotcha. Okay, so is there a motion to approve 53, 2023?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Mr. Batista. Mrs. Ball Miller.
Yes.
Ms. Lambert.
Yes.
Ms. Snyder,
Yes,
Mayor Davis.
Yes.
I have a bill list this evening in the amount of $1,921,924.63.
This is a very large bill, but it was a lot of, the time of year where we pay a lot of benefits.
Yes.
Is there a motion to approve the bills?
So moved.
second,
Second.
Mr. Batista,
Yes.
Mrs. Ball Miller.
Yes.
Ms. Lambert.
Yes.
Ms. Snyder,
yes,
Mayor Davis.
Yes.
Under general discussion, I just wanted to provide a quick follow-up, our last discussion about the private dune walkovers. Jim Safara is here to just give a little update. Is he still here? Come on up, Jim.
So everybody is in compliance now with the dune walkover.
Could you talk more in the microphone? I'm having really trouble hearing. Sorry.
Everybody was in compliance with the dune walkovers now. So we're all set as far as the 6 people that were not in compliance. And I was just going to make a motion with changing the ordinance 57-4 from, just to change the language as far as, changing the dates instead of April 1st to November 1st. Change it to April 1st to September 1st, so people.
To get them down faster.
Yes.
Yeah, makes sense.
yeah, that's good.
Makes sense because they go away and they forget about it. So this
Right,
way,
exactly.
yeah.
Take care of it while they're still here.
I also think that you were discussing wanting more removed. I think the ordinance as it exists now says they only have to take out the roll-up mat.
Correct.
But you're asking that they remove everything, the side fencing
Yeah, from top
and
of
the
dune,
roll-up.
And get rid of the dune fence if we can. And then, so right at the top of the dune. So it's, if we do have any erosions, that we can easily get in there with the machines to pick up the beach.
Are there any other things that you're requesting that the council consider changing?
The application fee was, for the original application was $100. I wanted to change that to maybe $250. And then the annual fee or inspection is $75, and I thought maybe to change that to $200. And then at the end of the season, if they're in compliance, everything is fine. But if they have not removed the roll-ups and the dune fence, I think that we should maybe instill a fine. I don't know whether council would entertain $1,000.
The violations and penalties that is already written for this chapter requires a court appearance, and then the judge can assess a fine up to $1,000. So I think that's fine to leave it like that.
Jim, I have a question. The September 1st, I don't know, I'm going to the beach like through September. And,
Correct. Yeah.
I just think maybe that's a little bit strict. I understand you might want to get it back a little bit, but
Perhaps, like maybe the mid-September. But I think the sooner the better. Perhaps it would help also, maybe people would not want to do the dune walkovers, with all the hassle of having to take the dune fence down and to roll up the walkways and stuff. Just trying to help deter people.
no, I understand what you're doing. I mean, I'm just thinking in terms of like October 1st, because like I said, realistically, I know I'm on that beach until the very last second, and that's often into October.
My only concern was just these continual storms that we get, whether or not all of a sudden they'll get buried, which is the reason why there was so much trouble with the walkways that were there. They couldn't get to them. And then they had that vertical drop, which just made it impossible for people to get unless they hired a landscaper or a builder to come in and do it. So
Is it possible to put language in that if a storm comes, then it is,
there already is language in there for a storm, and they have 30 days to take care of it. But a lot of people did not. And the 6 people that were in violation, I sent them a letter, and it wasn't until I started phoning them, giving them calls and trying to make them take care of their situation that it was important to take care of. So
I'd just like to comment on that. I'm I could see September 15th, but I think it's a good idea because I personally want to discourage them anyway. And it's definitely a hardship for, it's hurricane season and, better to err on the side of caution. And so then September 15th to October 15th, they have to walk around like the rest of us. I don't have a problem with that at all.
September 15th?
Sounds good.
That sounds good to me. It's after Labor Day. A lot of people leave and they
Yeah.
shut their house down and they're gone, and then you can't even get a hold of them to do it.
Right.
Right.
That's a United.
If
Right.
they hire a company to do it, it gives them 2 weeks to get it done. It's better than September 1st.
Seems fair.
Thank you.
I also agree with the raise, the increase, the raising the cost.
Okay, we'll get it written.
I'm getting a good piece from you.
Okay. All right.
Any more discussion in the council on this?
No, I just think that, the strength lies in the fines. That's how I feel.
Mhm.
And, being in education, like you're not supposed to punish everybody for what a few do. And it kind of seems we're doing that a little bit here. The annual fee, we'll hear what they have to say. I'm not really too concerned about that one, but I just think before we go too heavy-handed, I just, would rather see those who are violating it pay the price instead of everybody and the others who aren't.
Okay. All right, number 2 on the general discussion is a continuation of the budget discussion. Hi.
I had mine with me. I had it right there.
I think
for me
this
to
is an
take with
update.
me. I
This is an
forgot.
update. I guess it's
Stay
an
right
update.
next to you. Thank you.
Welcome, Sherry Bowler.
Okay. Okay, so after last discussion, there were only 2 additions that I made to the worksheets that we reviewed. What I see for tonight and what the plan I would like for tonight is we went over last week all of the operational costs, salary and wage, other expenses. We discussed all of that. Now we have total figures of where total value of our budget. And then, we need to have a discussion on how we're going to balance the budget. Since last discussion, there were 2 items that I added. I believe we mentioned it last discussion, but I added 5,000 to the police other expense for a request to purchase some medical supplies. And then I added 20,000 to the capital page for the roof reconstruction at the police department. We had an existing line item there for 20,000 for the preliminary design of the police building. And then we went to bid for the repair of the roof, and we were 20,000 shy to award the contract. So I increased that line item in the budget from 20,000 to 40,000 to cover the contract to repair the roof.
Is that in the 266 that we approved tonight?
Yes. I did not reprint all of the worksheets. It's a lot of paper. If you would like a copy, I'd be happy to provide one. So where does that stand? Our total budget with everything entered in is $14,558,613.27. On the sheets that I gave you tonight, if you turn to this first page, we discussed this last week. I made a few revisions to it to update the budget amount, plus give a few more scenarios on how to balance the budget.
Where is that total budget figure?
Yeah.
On the first page down the bottom there,
Mhm.
below the pink?
Yes.
Thank you.
So if you take the total budget subtract out the revenues that we have anticipated with the library levy, which is a mandated amount. We need to balance the budget. We have 194,000 that we need to balance the budget. When I plug in, just as a baseline, so we can compare from the prior year, when I plug in the surplus that we used from the prior year, that's where we have the hole, so to speak, that we have to fill with 9.1 million. So the scenarios, if you look at the bottom half of the sheet where we try to balance the budget using surplus versus tax levy. Under the column, if you recall, the first part, it was just maybe for a reference where if you were to key in a fixed dollar value on how you would balance the budget. Again, this is everything that we went over last month. If you go to the second part where, fixed tax rate, if you were to leave the tax rate the same as the prior year, which is our municipal share is 0.383, and if we were to then balance the budget using entirely surplus, the surplus would be 3.9 million, which is a 840,000 increase from the prior year. I gave a few more scenarios underneath that on what the scenario would look like to balance raising half a cent on the tax rate, 1 cent on the tax rate, 1.5 cent, and a 2 cent tax increase. Those are just different scenarios to review. If you go to the second page that I gave you, this is an analysis over the past 10 years of what our annual debt is from our annual debt statement. From 2021 to 2022, we had a 0.5 cent increase. We went from 0.461 to 0.51%. I also have an analysis here of over the 10 years of what our debt service appropriation is as a percentage of the total budget. And then also for the same year, the surplus that we've used to balance the budget, and that also as a percentage of the total budget. You can see over the 10 years, this is what we talk about every year. Our budget is driven a lot by our debt. 10 years ago was also pre-Sandy, but our debt was about 4% of our budget, and now we're at 10% of our budget.
I don't think that's a fair statement, Sherry, that's saying that the budget is driven by our debt. You'll have to explain that one a little more to me.
Our debt service appropriation in the budget has risen from a $400,000 line item expense up to now it's 1.5 million. So that one line item.
But wasn't that by choice?
No, we have a legal minimum that we have to pay down our debt.
What is the legal minimum?
Well, we have our notes that we pay, which mature in 10 years. So we're required to pay down 10% of that a year. We actually, a few years ago, got aggressive and paid down more than the legal limit. So we're paying more than what we are legally required to pay in order to pay these notes off in 10 years. But even with doing that, our notes have risen over the years. We used to have about 3 million in notes. Now we went up to 6 million in 2021 or 2022, excuse me. Last year, we rolled over 7 million in notes. And on the last spreadsheet that I have here gives the breakdown of what the notes comprised of in 2022, the 7 million. And I've done projections on what the new rollover of the notes will be in 2023, which we roll over in May. And we're looking at now rolling over and borrowing about 10 million in notes. So even with our aggressive, more than the minimum pay down over the years, we're actually approaching that our pay down, right now we have 1.2 million. If we have 10 million in notes, 1/10 of that would be a million. Our pay down isn't really as aggressive as it used to be. So even with our aggressive pay down, our notes are increasing. We're borrowing more money, and that is driven by the ordinances that we are adopting year after year. On the last spreadsheet here, and I show this every year, we usually discuss this more at capital time, but since it's relevant to the budget, you will see here the list of the ordinances over the past 10 years and the amount that we've adopted, the amount that's authorized to borrow. You'll see on the last page, the ban issue for the 7 million and 7,000, how that was broken out by ordinance. And then I have the 2023 draft that I'm working on for the May rollover, which is where the notes will be. Right now I have it up at 10 million. We take the original note minus our pay down, which is our budget appropriation, plus any new money that is added, which the new money added to our notes would be prior year's ordinances that we now need to borrow the money for. And that becomes our final note that we would roll over in May. At the bottom of that second page, I also just gave different scenarios of the different options to balance the budget. Those are the items shaded in green. Basically surplus versus tax, how the percentage changes of surplus utilized to support the budget. The spreadsheet titled Annual Tax Liability per Assessed Value is what does this mean? What does this mean for the homeowner? The average assessed home in Beach Haven is $845,666. The tax liability, the 2022 tax rate of 0.383, that tax liability is $3,238.90. Again, this is just the municipal portion of your total tax bill, which represents about a third. The 2022 tax rate was 1.125, so we are about, a third plus county tax, school tax. I cannot control, and I do not know what their tax levies will be this year. I have given examples for a 1 cent tax increase, 1.5 cent tax increase, 2 cent tax increase. For the average assessed home, you would see a 1 cent tax increase would cost $84.57 annually for the year. For $1 million home, a 1 cent tax increase would equate to $100. And so forth. So the question becomes, again, how do we balance the budget? We balance the budget utilizing tax revenue and surplus. We find a balance between the two. So again, how this sheet represents what the surplus would be, with no tax increase, and how the tax increase would affect the surplus. 1 cent on the tax rate, a 1 cent increase equates to $216,362. So just as a reference, that's the amount of money that's generated with the 1 cent tax increase. If we increase our expenses, 200,000, 216,000, that's the equivalent of a 1 cent tax increase. So with all of that, I would like to hear council's comments on where how you would like to balance the budget. I know these are a lot to digest right now. I'm not asking necessarily for a final determination, but I would like the feeling on it, and maybe we could set a deadline, maybe towards the end of the week, to finalize it. Statutorily, we have to introduce the budget by March 31st. I believe we have an agenda meeting on the 30th.
Correct.
So the goal is to introduce the budget on March 30th. I have one other idea that I would also like to throw out there. If you recall last year, the community disaster loan that we were given after Sandy, and we were required for, starting in 2018, I believe, we were required to appropriate in our budget 1/5 of that loan. We had $1.8 million given to us after Sandy for the community disaster loan. We utilized that money to help fund the budget. They recommended that we take that money and we reduce our surplus that we used in the budget. So you would actually see on the page here where I show the history of surplus. Around that time we were given the money in 2014. We dropped our surplus accordingly because we had this loan. Over the 3 years that we had to appropriate the funds as a reserve to pay down the debt, we were required to start paying it down in 2018, 1/5 of it. We were reserving the money. We never made the payment to pay it back. And then last year with COVID, the state decided to forgive these loans, if you recall. So, and they were forgiving the portions that were unpaid. So it was in our benefit that we didn't pay the loan back. We had $1 million in a reserve that last year filtered into our surplus. It was raised in the budget as a reserve to pay debt. The one thing I don't have reflected on these sheets, but we could also, as an idea, take that $1 million, put it on the appropriation side as an additional pay down to the notes, increasing our debt service to $2.2 million and utilizing the extra in surplus to pay that off. Something else to think about.
How much did you hold in reserve, Sherry, on that CDL for those 3 years?
1 million.
You hold, yeah, with that, and we got
1,015,000.
and you had $1.8 million starting? The loan was $1.8 million?
1.8 million.
$1.8 million.
Mhm.
And of the $1.8 million, how much did we spend on that?
We utilized the whole thing in our budget.
I think the question for us here on council is, from my analysis of what we've seen here, certainly it's costing us more to operate the town. Salaries and wages are up, gasoline is up, everything is up.
Everything's up.
From just purely an operating standpoint. Take away the whole debt side of things. And let's just look at what it costs to operate our town, to pay our salaries and wages and all our operating expenses. I think it would, for me, I think it would be irresponsible to say that we shouldn't raise taxes a little. We certainly have enough money in reserve to pay this gap in our budget, but we're only fooling ourselves because these increased wages are not going down. So next year, we're going to have to deal with the same thing and maybe even a little bit more. So I would be in favor of a tax increase. I don't like it. I'm home. I have a lot of property here. But I just cannot recommend that we use our current fund surplus to pay all of this gap. I would recommend that we do at least 1%, and I'd leave it up to council to decide if they want to go any higher than that.
Can I just, I'm sorry, interrupt 1 second. You are correct. And when I say it's mostly driven by debt, our budget, it has over the years mostly been driven by debt. To your point, this year I did see one, this is the first year that we've had this hole to fill, this 900,000. We're not used to this kind of a hole to fill to balance our budget. We haven't had a discussion this difficult in at least, maybe since then in the past, few years. They do limit they put a cap on our budgets. There's a levy cap. There is an appropriations cap. We are squeezing by a little bit more this year with our appropriations cap. We're hitting our limits, and the appropriations cap is where they limit the operational costs, the debt service and capital and shared services. There are exclusions to the appropriations cap. And likewise with the levy cap, if you have expenses, whatever you don't budget for up to your cap, they allow you to bank those extra funds. This year, without a prior year bank, we wouldn't have been within our cap. So we're utilizing now prior year unbudgeted funds to allow us. We are also seeing, as everybody, the inflation and increased cost. So our operational costs, yes, have driven, and that is a part of this budget. So it is not entirely debt. I think I'm just used to every year saying we're driven by debt, but this year it is debt and operational costs.
I did a little research on this, Sherry. As you know, I've been asking a lot of questions. I'll give you some ugly figures here. Our salary and wages alone, including our health benefits that we provide our employees and our employer part of our payroll taxes, total $7,500,000. Our levy is $8,200,000. The levy is our tax rate applied to the net asset value of our properties in town. So that's where the problem is. And if there is a problem, Sherry's doing a great job and the town's running really well. We have to keep our employees happy. They have to work for a wage that they can afford to live here. So taxes are going to have to go up a little.
I just went to the state budget workshop for elected officials on Saturday. That was a real eye opener. And, one of the things they said is that you cannot borrow too heavily from your surplus. They said it's very tempting. It makes it easy to balance. But, God help you if there is a Sandy or any kind of emergency that you need. So as tempting as it is to dip into that, I know, like many of you in this room, I'm sure you can't buy your own house back today if you had the great good fortune of buying it years ago, like most of us did. And that's what makes this really tough. I do not wish to raise taxes, but I think we actually have to. It pains me to say, but I think we're going to have to. I'm thinking like 1 cent. So on $1 million house, that would be $100. And I know that's going to hurt some people.
The 1 cent, as you know, Colleen, I know you know, the 1 cent for the benefit of the public, as Sherry explained to us, gives us about $200,000 plus. Mm-hmm. We have to fill a gap of 900,000. So that's still leaving us with 700,000 plus in round numbers.
Right.
And so I would be in favor of using the grant money that we received that's sitting in our current fund to bridge that amount, so we didn't have to raise taxes more than 1 cent. But I could also see the argument that some people on council may want to raise taxes more than 1 cent. So, and maybe we have to.
No, weigh in, everybody.
Anybody? I'll weigh in. I think we have to raise taxes. Inflation is rampant. We have to pay our employees a living wage. And for many years, our employees were making very little money. I think we've finally gotten the wages up to something that's relatively decent. In addition to that, for every employee, there's medical benefits that has to be paid, and for every retiree and pension, and for every retiree, we continue to pay those fees. So you can't avoid this. The other thing, and I wish we could have some of these sheets of papers projected up on the screen so you people in the audience could see, because it's a very interesting discussion. And maybe in the future we can do this, because I know in Zoom you can do it. But I think it's important for everybody to realize that what we're looking at is only 1/3 of your tax bill. So you're basically getting taxed by the county and by the school. And the school includes both Southern Regional and the Beach Haven School. So to be perfectly truthful, a penny raise for $1 million house is $100. I know $100 used to be a lot of money. It's not so much anymore. You can't really go out for dinner with two people and spend less than $100 by the time you leave a tip. I know it hurts some people. There might be some ways that you can pull in your belt to be able to afford that extra 100 or whatever, depending on the value of your house. But with inflation, I think we just have to at least raise our taxes a penny and hope that the school and the county aren't going to raise theirs as well. Interestingly enough, the county, we get money back from the county, and we were very fortunate because with these pumping stations, normally we were going to have to pay about half of that, and which was $1.5 million. And we got forgiven that. So that's $1.5 million we don't have to spend now that we thought we were going to have to spend, right? I'm right on that, right?
I don't believe the agreement has gone through. However, they
told us that verbally. When we were up in
yes,
Tom's
I've had a
River.
couple discussions with
Right.
her, and I've called back to say, is this true? So they are funding the contracted amount, which was, I believe the award was about 2.6 million. So the total appropriation was 3 million. So we are on the hook for soft cost engineering, permit fees and such. We just, was it last meeting, awarded a change order
This meeting.
this meeting, sorry. So that was 200,000. So I'm going to ask if it will include the additional construction costs as well, but they're not funding 3 million. It's whatever the award of the contract was 2.6. But yes, originally it was supposed to be
1.5.
50%.
Yeah. But I mean, they literally, the guy was sitting right across from me and they said, we're forgiving this loan. So whatever, but it was, but I do think we have to be realistic. Everything's going up in price, everything, gas, cotton. I just read a big article about that. Anything with cotton in it has gone way up in price. And so that means our expenses go up. So I don't think we really have an option at this
Our
point.
pension went up about 15%. Health insurance went up 16%. I know I mentioned this last week also with the last meeting with the appropriations cap. The state actually did recognize that there were these costs that went up that were beyond our control. So they allowed, and this is the first I've ever seen that they allowed, there are some calculations that you can do for gasoline and oil, for pension, for workers' comp insurance, and you're allowed to pull out of the cap, just to put it on a different sheet on the budget as an exclusion to the cap, but a certain percentage of those costs. So they are recognizing that it is a difficult year across the board for all towns.
Jamie?
I thought Kitty was talking.
I was just gonna say, I mean, we all know how all of our costs, household costs, healthcare costs are going up. Certainly, I do not want to raise taxes. And it pains me to even suggest to do so. I don't see another way. It's been explained. We've listened to it. We understand it. And I think a penny, 2 cents would be probably more helpful, but I'm hoping that a penny will do it. And I think that I don't think it's irresponsible to to do that based upon the situation at hand. And I don't see another option other than just to raise taxes a penny and hope that'll do it. Sorry about that.
Yeah, unfortunately, I also agree. If you look at the last 5 years, we only raised taxes once in the last 5 years. In 2017, they raised 6 cents, and since then, it's been only 1 cent since 2017. So in the last 5 years, we've been pretty good with not raising taxes, but unfortunately, with the increases in salaries and wage and pension and medical costs, I think that that's the only real way that we're going to have to do it. But I really think that we should stick to just a penny increase for this year.
Anybody else?
I'm hearing a penny as a consensus.
Mhm.
So the only other thing I would like to recommend, and if you want to weigh in or allow me to make my own financial analysis and projections, is the question of the $1 million that we had the loan forgiveness. So.
You want to put it toward the debt?
No,
I
she
do.
wants to pay down the debt.
Yeah,
I want to pay down the debt.
that's your advice, your
Mhm.
expertise.
Mhm.
I think there was one item too, Sherry, that we were uncertain of was the contribution to the first responders. I know the council had requested some more details for the first aids request for their increase, and I know Deb's on the meeting tonight. Deb, would you mind speaking to that request?
Yeah, can you hear me, Sherry?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, I sent you an email today, and I think I copied our mayor on, and I sent that in case I had a first aid call and was unable to attend, but I was sent an email by John Halperin, and it covered the monies recently invested in Beach Haven Volunteer Fire Company. So I said in my email to you that our request made to Beach First Aid Squad to be given an equal amount for the annual donation is in keeping with prior years of Beach Haven's governing bodies, including the 10 years in which I was mayor and public safety commissioner. Just like the fire company, we too have a need to upgrade and increase the number of radios that we need to cover more than 1,200 first aid calls that we respond to each year. Over $20,000 was spent upgrading the volunteer fire company's pagers and radios. And I just want to state that our needs are no less compelling and require the financial support of the municipalities that we serve. And on top of this, we will be replacing our oldest ambulance with a new one in the not too distant future. And these fully equipped rigs have more than doubled in price since our last purchase. And Sherry, you know that the cost of contracting with an outside agency to minimally cover the borough of Beach Haven, the EMS needs of the borough of Beach Haven is exorbitant. We're just asking that equal attention and support, financial otherwise, be given to emergency medical services that our residents and visitors have come to depend on. So I thank you for allowing me to send you that email and sharing it with you tonight.
Thank you.
I would also, ask that, I know that you've responded already, but the amount of LoSAP that is able to be given to members of the volunteer fire company and Beach Haven First Aid Squad allows for a cost of living increase. And since we approved LoSAP back in the day when I was in office, we started out $11.50. The amount able to be given to volunteers who have been in the fire and first aid for all these years is now up to close to $2,000 stipend per year under the LoSAP program. So I would ask that you give consideration to both the LoSAP program and the annual donation to us in keeping with what is provided our volunteer fire company. Thank you.
Can I ask a question of Deb?
Sure.
Deb, you still there?
I'm here.
Okay. I know earlier this year you said that there was no coverage on the south end of the island because there were so few EMTs. And at one point there was talk about a hybrid service with Hackensack Meridian. And recently it was in the paper about a training program to be done with borough employees, I believe mostly from Long Beach Township. How does this impact what donations we may be giving? I'm just not sure what our status is right now because I know you're very, very short on volunteers and kind of where do we stand?
Well, Hackensack Meridian does not have the manpower to help us. So that's off the table. We are working with Joe Latanzi and the mayor and Ralph Baird at Long Beach Township so that they will, they are starting up an EMT program where their employees who participate in this program and become members will be paid a stipend through Long Beach Township to assist us in covering the more than 1,200 calls that we have from, the Ship Bottom border to Holgate. Beach Haven is not contributing anything in terms of manpower or the allowance of our borough employees to assist in our first aid calls, either as a driver or an EMT.
Okay, so, but I mean, basically you do have enough manpower right now to cover Beach Haven and the south end of the island?
We have been covering Beach Haven and the south end of the island for almost 100 years. And we
I know, but
continue to
I
cover-
know, Deb, I'm not disputing that. I'm just saying, I know at one point when you were in a meeting, you stood up and said, Jim and I are going on vacation and there is nobody covering, so try not to get hurt. So, I mean, to me, that was very concerning. And I just want to see, what our status is, like how many people do we have right now? I mean, are we covered sufficiently?
Well, we're going on vacation on the 25th for a 1-week cruise, and I have a man and woman coming from way up North Jersey to cover us for the 7 days that we're gone. So that should
Great.
answer the question.
No, it does. Like I said, I just never even thought about it till you threw it out at the meeting, and it's concerning. I just wanted to figure out where we were right now, what the status was. Thank you.
Well, if it weren't for Long Beach Township, I would say that our status for the upcoming season is, to put it mildly, dire, because
Oh.
there are no EMTs at this end of the island who are answering the calls for emergency services other than myself.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was interested in hearing. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Deb? Thanks, Deb.
You're
Thank you, Deb.
welcome. Thank you.
Back to the budget. Sherry had asked that she wants to use that $1 million grant money to pay down debt, which means that another 700,000 plus or minus would come out of the current fund to fill the gap. What's your pleasure? I think if we give her an answer, she can get on with doing her work rather than dragging it out. It's pretty straightforward at this stage of the game. I personally don't think it's going to affect anything
I don't think it'll affect
seriously
anything
one way or
the
another.
other.
Sherry,
I
will it?
personally,
We have to fill the gap somehow,
All right.
whether surplus or that grant.
Right, a
Right.
1 cent, a 1 cent
It's going to reduce
increase.
the depth of the gap by about 200,000.
Right, a 1 cent increase, we would be utilizing 3.6 million in surplus. If I add $1 million to debt, we're going to use 2.6 million in surplus. But that's really where the $1 million came from, a reserve to pay for debt, which is why I would like to just dump it right back in, even though that loan was forgiven. So,
How much are we paying
Sherry,
right now for
I
our
already
debt?
explained it to you. You're complicating it.
Yeah. How much
So-
are we paying for our debt right now? I mean, that's a big question.
2.25%.
And we were paying about 0.5% before.
last year was a very low interest rate. It was less than 0.5%. But that was a one-time thing that I've never seen before. It's usually around 1 to 2%.
Right. I mean, as the debt goes up, you want to pay it off. I mean, you know, it could go up higher. So my feeling is try to pay as much off as you can.
Mhm.
I don't see it going down again real fast.
The debt or the interest rate?
The interest rate. That's the concern.
Depends on how many more banks fail here in the next month.
What?
Depends on how many more banks fail here in
Oh,
the
God,
next
that
month.
was pretty scary, that Silicon Valley Bank, yeah.
So Nancy, you're in favor of that direct appropriation of that
Yes,
CDL proceeds to the debt?
yeah, I am. I don't see that it matters one way or the other. Yeah, what does everybody else think?
Are you confident that with the 1 cent tax increase and using the money, that everything will be fairly copacetic?
The pay
Yes.
down on that million, Colleen, has nothing to do with the gap in the budget.
Okay, but I
Right, they're
mean,
independent of each other, but
right, but you're confident that 1% and then everything else will be,
yes, I
One
mean,
cent,
it is more also that we've ever utilized in surplus to fund the budget. We may start to have conversations that look different next year. You know, as I always say, we have this steady slope where every year, obviously, you want to end up with a net income. You want your revenues to be greater, you know, so we may start to have discussions where, you know, we're plateauing. You know, we're utilizing 3.6 million now in surplus. The idea is to regenerate it. That is just about what we regenerated in surplus last year. So if our operations stay the same, we're going to be, you know, at a you know, no income, no loss. So we can afford it this year. It's a tough year for everybody. So would I suggest taking this strategy every year continually? You know, not maybe necessarily, but it's a discussion to have next year.
Can I say something too? And I think it's important for the public to know this. I think we also have to think about saving money, maybe not spending as much. But I want to say that our audit is very good. So if we're not in any super danger here. I mean, our audit and the audit's public. So anybody here in the audience that's listening that wants to read the audit, they can get a copy of it and read it. It's pretty boring reading, to be perfectly truthful, but it has a lot of information in it. And we get very, very high ratings from our auditor. We're in better shape than most municipalities in this state. So we're not, you know, we're talking about this and it sounds dire. I mean, you know, when I look at my budget and I say, well, if I borrow money, I mean, I'm getting, when your debt gets higher than what you can do to make money with any money you borrow, you don't want to do that. You want to pay off your debt. And I think that's where we have to think of the future because inflation might continue. But I do think that the audience needs to know, the people in the town need to know that we are really in extremely good financial shape in this town. And if you read our audit, we're not in any danger of failing in the town, but we want to be cautious and careful. And I think that's what we're doing. You agree with me on that? Our audit's
I
good,
do.
right?
Well said.
Anybody else? So we've made a decision to ask Shari to increase the taxes by 1 penny and also to use that grant money to pay off some of the debt. We're all in agreement? Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect.
thank you.
Thank you, Sherry.
So we're finished with this discussion. I'm going to open the floor to public comment in a minute, but I did get a text from Dan Allen, and he did say that it would be, he would like to know why we postponed the vote on the pickleball courts. And I can only speak for myself. I've had lots and lots of emails from people that are not happy with any more pickleball courts on Nelson Avenue. I think we don't want to force pickleball courts down people's throats in an area where they really, really don't want it. I do think it would be nice if we had some more pickleball courts in Beach Haven, but I would like to think more about it and see if there's any other options that might come up where we could perhaps build pickleball courts somewhere else in an area that wasn't so close to all the residential homes. In addition to that, I've had many, many emails from people that are anti the skateboard park where it is. And that's another thing I think we need to look at as well. I'm not against the skateboard park in any stretch of the imagination, but I do think we need to think about, do we really want it in Walsh Field? I'm having as many emails from people that don't want it there. And I've even gotten calls from teenagers saying, don't put them down on Taylor Avenue because that's where we hang out. So I think we should build some big floating docks out in the bay and put everything there. But I think we need to really think about this more. And in light of this discussion, all this stuff costs money as well. Now, the vote on pickleball wasn't to build the courts, it was just to encumber the money. And encumbering the money doesn't mean that we're spending the money. The money, one of the good things about having money encumbered for something is that 5 or 6 years or 1 year later, and you need something like a roof on the police station, you can find that money because it has been encumbered, but it doesn't mean that you've spent it. But if something really comes up that is absolutely critical, then you can get that money. Otherwise, it's almost impossible once this budget is established to find money for something different. Am I right on that, Shari?
Well, when we adopt an ordinance, the money is dedicated for the line item that.
Right, but you can, if say we wanted to do something fantastic in Veterans Park, instead of building pickleballs on Nelson Avenue, we could build them on Nelson Park, or we could use it for a giant.
Well, like we did a few months ago with the old trolley ordinance,
Right.
that we didn't go forth with the project, so we hadn't spent any of that yet. We retitled it. So you can do that. That also still goes, to a meeting as an ordinance, but if we are writing an ordinance, adopting an ordinance for capital projects, they
Right.
are specific to the project. Now, we often say park improvements because we don't want to be maybe limited, but
Yeah,
we have to be specific, but we try to be as vague as we can so that you can
flexibility.
have a little bit of flexibility.
Yeah, like you found the money for the roof on the police station. That was
Right, out of
encumbered.
monies that wasn't spent still from the construction of this building. We had a little bit left over from that, so it is similar in nature.
Right.
Mhm.
It's very complicated. I mean, you're under all these constraints, but I think that's the reason that we tabled this motion on the pickleball courts. I think maybe other people on the council would like to speak to that as well. I'm not anti-pickleball or skateboard parks. I personally think we need a better plan. I mean, we need to look at everything and say, where are we going to put these things? What's the future of? I mean, maybe what we want to do is put the skateboard park down on Nelson where the pickleball courts are and move the pickleball courts somewhere else. I mean, that costs more money if you decide to do that, but it might make, in the long run, everybody happier. I've always thought the pickleball courts would be better up by Taylor Avenue, where you've got Fantasy Island and Thundering Surf to the south, and all the businesses, Schooner's Wharf and all that to the north, and there's not a lot of residents there that would be disturbed by it. But somebody mentioned a while ago, maybe it would be nice to have a group of people that looked at in general all our parks and open space to look for a plan that would best work for the entire town.
I mean, I'd like to just chime in. I think that anytime council or a board continues or postpones a vote on something that you're not sure about yet, it's a good thing, right? We want to make sure, we want to weigh all the options and decide before we go ahead and do that. Like Shari said, it should be specific to the project. You know, that being said, you know, we're talking about raising taxes, so it's not a good time to bring it up. But, you know, remember, Jamie mentioned that she felt that the pickleball people cut the line. And I understand where she was coming from, and that she was upset about that. But like, you all cut the line because frankly, myself and many of us have been asking for monies for Veterans Park for over 10 years and never have gotten a penny. So don't forget about Veterans Park. And I agree that we should be considering moving forward, planning for planting more trees and beautification of our parks. Everybody's so, you know, passionate about the green space at Nelson and Walsh, and as you should be, and I applaud you, but don't forget that with that comes cost sometimes. And so, you know, no, I'm not talking about pickleball or skateboard. I'm talking about, you know, beautifying green space and planting trees and, you know, honoring our veterans, all types of things. So please keep that in mind when it comes up. Thank you.
Public comment.
Right. All right. Anybody else on council before I open? Okay, so I'm opening the floor to public comment. Again, come to the microphone, state your name and address. Don't clap, don't boo, and we'll all be civil and keep your comments to 3 minutes. All right? And we'll go audience Zoom, like that.
Nancy, can I ask you a question before we open it up to public comment?
Say that again.
Can I ask a question? If I have something I wanted to bring up just for general discussion, would this be the time to do that, or at the end of after public comment?
You can bring it up right now, Kitty, if you want.
I just want to state my opinion on the Architectural Advisory Commission. If you attended the land use meeting last week, you realized that without an ordinance for this Architectural Advisory Commission, you know, we're never going to be able to, I don't want to use the word enforce, but to have some teeth in our encouragement as for people that are, you know, for applicants who are on Bay Avenue and in the Marine Commercial District such as Morrison. So without an ordinance, I think that it really is never going to go anywhere. And I would like to just encourage all of you to think about that. And I personally would like to see an ordinance with guidelines. It's nothing that we've done before, but it doesn't mean we can't do it. It won't be easy, but it doesn't mean it can't be done. So I just like us to all think about that moving forward. Thank you.
All right, anybody in the public want to speak? All right, can you help with the microphone? Right. And you have to tell your name and address first.
My name is Portia. My address is 1915 Virginia Ave, Beach Haven. If you take this park away, we will never get it back. What do you like about the park? It will be really dangerous. All the people will be racing for spots. People don't want to hear the sound of pickleball while they're sleeping. The town council should think about the other people, not just people that play pickleball. The little kids play on the playground while the big kids play on the grass.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
My name is Penelope, and my address is 1915 Virginia Ave. We use the park 12 months a year, while the pickleball only use the courts 12 months a year. The people playing pickleball aren't even from Beach Haven or around LBI. They're mostly from in Manahawkin. We have plenty of other pickleball courts. We don't have much other green space in Beach Haven.
Thank you. All right, thanks. Next, do we have somebody on Zoom that wants to talk?
Nancy, I'm gonna have to leave the meeting, because I have I'm away and I have a family situation, so I'm gonna have to leave the meeting. So I apologize, and thank you all very much.
Thanks, Kitty.
Thank you, Kitty.
I see Joanne Netta. I'm not sure. Let's see if she wants to speak. Joanne Netta, did you want to say something? I see an icon up for you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, did you want to speak?
I didn't, but I could if you want me to.
No, I just saw you had an icon up, so I just wanted to check.
Oh, no, I didn't. I was just listening, but
All right. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Anybody that would like to speak, if you could raise an electronic hand. I don't see anyone at the moment, so if you want to go back
Anybody
to
in
the room.
Anybody else in the room like to speak?
Corinne O'Connell, 331 Maryvale. I'm curious, well, I appreciate the pause and the intention, Mayor Davis, to listen more, right, about what is the needs and what's the collective and collaborative needs across all green space. I think my question to you and to all council is then, what is that process? What's that listening process? And how do we engage as constituents helping to inform that process? And then the other is, what is the transparency moving forward? So we've heard it's tabled until April 10th. It would be lovely to have a little more notification. A lot of us made a lot of changes to work schedules and childcare schedules to be here tonight, and encumbered some challenges in that process, and to be notified, right, or just to at 6:05 to say it's tabled. So I'm curious, or my ask would be then on April 10th, if it's on the, for a little bit more notice.
Well, that would be helpful. I agree. I'll see what we can do. Nothing's easy. And the process, you're right. I mean, how do we go about looking at this, and maybe, and that's something we have to decide. I mean, do we want to try to get a group of people together to look at the entire park situation? If we do, I mean, I know Kitty Snyder has been very involved with Veterans Park for a long time, and she truly cares about the parks. And I mean, I'd like to be able to see everything happen and have a community where we can all enjoy a lot of different activities. But I mean, this kind of tension that's going on is very difficult. And I don't think we need to rush into this at the moment. I think we have to look at the whole situation. And I agree. I mean, green space is important. And there are places in town that are blacktopped in that might be suitable for some of these.
So just to clarify, it is still right now on, the second vote right now is on for April 10th.
It is.
Okay,
Thank you.
great.
We do have a meeting on the 30th of March, so maybe we'll have some information. And those minutes will be up. Anybody on Zoom want to talk? No? Do we have anybody in the audience that would like to come up and speak?
Sue Sharkey, 10 North Delaware Avenue in Beach Haven. First, I want to say that if we were, regarding like the parks or recreation, if we were a bigger city, it would be great to have a paid recreation director, but maybe we could consider a recreation committee volunteer and just get different voices. No decision powers, but maybe then, you know, they could come up with something to bring to you. So just an idea about that, not just for pickleball, maybe just a parks
For
committee
everything.
or something. Yeah. Which is sort of what you alluded to. And the second thing that I want to comment on, I know taxes, it's a dirty word. I understand that. And I just want to speak for me and my house. And I think I probably, I think there's many other households in agreement. I personally am as cheap as the day is long. I reuse before I recycle. I give everything a second life. But I certainly appreciate value and quality. And I think that's what we're willing to, I certainly support the increase in taxes. And I just want you folks who work very hard to not feel any guilt about it, as hard as it is. And thank you for your efforts.
Thank you. Very nice. Anybody on Zoom? Sherry, no? Anybody else in the audience? Yes, come on up.
Lori Anderson, 1001 West Avenue, Beach Haven. You're moving the ordinance about the skate park, pickleball till April 10th or 11th, when that is spring break. So maybe you could consider it another month. Families will be away, so I think they deserve the courtesy of attending a meeting. That's number one. Number two is, where did the $50,000 from the trolley money go? The trolley money that didn't happen, where did it get reappropriated to?
The trolley ordinance got retitled to the skate park.
Skate park.
But that doesn't mean that it's spent. It's just,
It was unspent. It was adopted on an ordinance for the trolley. The trolley project never came to fruition and nothing was spent on it. So we retitled that money
Okay.
for the skate park.
All right, that's pretty convenient. And just so you know, that sound system really is not good. It's pretty fuzzy and echoey for people in the back. They may not, I know I can't understand a lot
I'm
of it.
having a real hard time understanding people on Zoom
Yeah,
as well.
so-
I don't know if it's my ears or.
Maybe some of the money could be spent on speakers throughout the room or something.
I
I
don't
just
know.
think that they're overly sensitive. If you're speaking too close, it does that.
Oh,
It's the Zoom stuff that I can't hear.
yeah, it's the Zoom stuff.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for your efforts.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, Jen Tomlinson, 306 South Bay Ave, Beach Haven. There's so much talk about the debt and paying down the debt. And, last month, I think you said if we hit 11 million, we're not really paying down at that point. Like if we hit that, and in May, we're looking at 10 million. So I just have a question with the repurposed bond, and it was trolleys and skate park. I don't know if there are other ones out there. Is there the ability to return or not use authorized but unused bonds to help with the budget?
If we, yes, if there's a project that is adopted, such as the trolley, and then you decide that you're not going to go forth with the project, you could and you would cancel the ordinance, that line item, which would then revert back to where it came from, the funding. It would have, so that money was never borrowed. It's on the books right now as authorized but not issued notes. It's in our debt calculator, but it's not included in our debt, in
We're
our
not paying
band.
interest on it.
Right, we never borrowed the money. It's just as a placeholder right now. So, but if we didn't spend a project and canceled it, we would then cancel the ordinance, the line item, and it would come off the books.
So that would go into the budget, because it just seems, hearing about the budget, pickleball, skate park, an inability to say no to what our friends or family want. And if money wasn't used for something, could it go back into the budget?
Great. Anybody else? Yes.
And I'm going to keep this short, Nancy. Nancy Jusick. I'm not
Yes.
short on words.
Yes.
But my question
What's
is.
your address, Nancy?
Oh, I'm sorry, 408 Liebert Avenue, Beach
Thank
Haven,
you.
New Jersey. My question is, there was a lot of discussion tonight about possibly forming a volunteer group to assess all the parks and the needs. So, which sounds like an excellent idea. So if that is going to happen, why would we build a pickleball court anywhere right now until we know what the overall picture is in Beach Haven? It would seem to me that should just be put aside until we have a definite plan for this wonderful borough. Just my opinion.
Good thought. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
Somebody said to me the
You have
other.
to say your name and address again, I
All
know.
over.
I'm
Lori
sorry.
Anderson, 1001 West Avenue. Somebody said to me the other day, hey, Silver Sun's for sale, make an indoor pickleball court. So all those enthusiasts, maybe they would want to, buy the building and do it and leave the green space green. If they like pickleball that much for the whole island, you never know, maybe it could happen.
That would be cool. You'd have indoor pickleball year
And all the
round.
noise
Right.
can stay right there. Play
And I
night
think
and
it's
day.
about $5 million for that place. So
Well,
that's the
If they
problem.
like it that much, let them do it.
Get a private person to run a pickleball facility. All right. Anybody else like to speak?
I have someone on Zoom.
You have somebody on
Mhm.
Zoom? Good.
Bill Tortolat. Where'd you go?
We can't hear you.
I'm trying to get, yeah, okay. I'm
There
trying to
you
get my,
go.
Technology. I had begged off,
Just
my guess. is
State
that
your address
Dozen-
for the record, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, 417 Nelson Avenue. We're down the block just beyond the park.
Go ahead.
So I'm sorry, I apologize. I had jumped off of this. I think dozens and dozens of folks jumped off when this thing was tabled or continued. And so I'm a little disorganized, but I did, I know I emailed each of you today. I don't know if you got my email, just talking about the general use, like when the town fathers are laid out the zoning for this area, this being the furthest reach of Beach Haven there is, it was at a decidedly lower density level without any real significant commercial activity. So the lots are bigger, it's more spread out, it's a sleepier section of town. And then the passive park really was a compatible use, just a low density thing, giving people a place to throw a ball around and do things. But my concern is that it really satisfies all constituencies. No uses there are really exclusionary or exclusive, and that it's multi-purpose and a very inclusive situation. So bringing in the nuisance use of pickleball, nothing against pickleball, but it's a high intensive, noisy, jamming a lot of people into a small space. They're all coming in their own cars and everything else for the most part, largely from out of town, from what I've observed and heard. It's just been a real nuisance. So I think I think folks maybe have overplayed their hand a little bit who may be pushing for this, that this really ought to be scaled back. And maybe we need to take a harder look at the existing use and the impact it's had on all the neighborhood around it. It's really, maybe there's a better place where, near the commercial activity, like you mentioned, Nancy. So that it's just an inconsistent thing. I'd like to also second that April 10th is probably the worst date that could be picked, right in the middle of when a lot of families are away traveling and really not on a schedule. So I would hope that maybe you could commit to pick a different date tonight before you adjourn, one that really folks can participate in. So that's another thing. And then also I did stick around for a little bit and heard about raising the tax to cover the increased costs. And I don't really have any issue with any of that, but spending $250,000 on pickleball courts, even if it's through borrowing, certainly would be one place where we could tighten the belt, particularly when it's something that people universally are pretty unhappy about. So that's the bulk of what I wanted to bring up. I do know there's over 100 property owners from the area who have all been communicating, and they've all come together in about a week's time. People are
30
really
seconds,
upset
Bill.
about this. So hopefully you guys can think long and hard about the impact.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Anybody else want to speak? Okay. And you're next.
Hi, Deanna Carpentier, 327 Maryvale Ave. We're the duplex directly across from the grassy area of Nelson Ave Park.
And I
Can you
just wanna-
speak into the
Oh,
microphone?
sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, better.
Okay. So I'm at 327 Maryvale. We are the house that's directly across the street from the grassy area. And I would just like to add on to what he said. Some people may look at that grassy area as like a wasted space, but it's truly not. I have 4 kids. They are out in that park nonstop. You have dog owners there. You have high school athletes training for their sports in the fall. You have pickup games of soccer. You have kickball games. All kinds of things are happening there. And it would really be a loss for the neighborhood to lose that space. And I play pickleball. I've played on the courts across the street from the house. I'm not a pickleball hater, but increasing the number of courts is just not what our neighborhood needs. And I will also tell you, we've had a huge problem with increased traffic, people blocking our cars in our driveway, people whipping into our driveway, turning around to try and park. It's a bit of a mess. And so I just respectfully ask you to reconsider this.
I didn't
Thank
catch your
you.
name. I'm sorry.
Deanna Carpentier.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Somebody back there wanted, I can't really see very well.
I have someone else on
Yes.
Zoom too.
Oh, you have somebody on Zoom. We'll do the Zoom guy first, okay?
Okay. Jim Schumacher.
Jim Schumacher, 227 Marine. Just looking for an update on a skateboard park as to where that stands and what you have done or not done.
Say that again.
He wants an update on the skate park.
We do have a site plan that just came in like late this afternoon for the skateboard park. We really didn't have time to get it up, I don't think, but nothing much is happening at this moment. There's still a lot of groundwork. It's not definite even that it would be there. This is on Walsh Field. It could be somewhere else. It could not exist at all in the future, or it could be in another place. So,
And we also, on the advice from the last meeting, we don't have any type of paperwork in town as far as a deed restriction on Walsh Field. So we are getting a title search just to clear up that there's no type of restrictions on anything that would go at that park on the advice from the last meeting. And that's not complete yet.
Should not the deed be on file with the county?
Yes, we do have a book of all the old deeds and there is no restriction on that, but we want to be 100%. So we would do a title search as the second thing to do with that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
thank you. Okay. Who was it that wanted to speak in the audience? Yes, come on.
My name's Steve Melchiori, 1915 Virginia Avenue in Beach Haven. I guess I'll third what a couple other people have talked about as the date for the next meeting. I don't want to beat it into the ground, but there's been so many kids who have given up their Monday night police athletic league to come here and sit in on a few meetings. My kids included, a few of my friends' children, as you can see, are here. And I think they've really done a good job of showing their support for not having their parks taken away from them. So if you could consider perhaps moving that, I know I'll be away as will my family. So I'm sure I speak for a lot of other people. I wrote a brief letter earlier. There's been 100 of us who have come together over the last few weeks, people that I've never had the opportunity to speak to. And even people who have expressed that they play pickleball have all said the same thing. There's no need for park expansion, for pickleball court expansion, when at 12 o'clock noon, it's like Cinderella. The pumpkin, the chariot or carriage turns back into a pumpkin and everybody goes away. People who are avid pickleball players have said that. And I've witnessed it, because all you have to do is walk down West Avenue or walk down Nelson during the 2 months a year that we have the influx and surge of people, and you can see it firsthand. The difference between a need and a want really needs to be clearly defined. And I just want to talk about what Ms. Snyder said earlier. I don't know anybody sitting here who would have an issue with improving Veterans Park. And even to the point of, I know how quickly 100 people have come together to make a donation to fight against the pickleball courts. If you wanted to open up donations for green space, I'll write you a check tonight. You want to plant more trees? I'm all for it. I did write this prior to the understanding of the municipal budget, and I appreciate all that goes into it. It's probably more than anybody can really fathom. I'm not a huge tax raise person, but 1 penny on is to cover what we need to cover, I believe is fine. Don't burden yourselves with that. But I do have, our increased budget is not going to go anywhere unless we get a handle on our expenses, and burdening ourselves with another bond that we're going to have to pay back, to me, is fiscally irresponsible. I look around the room and the Zoom, and everything has been filled overwhelmingly with members of the community who are against pickleball. I think there was maybe one person, and I look on social media and there's like one girl who speaks out in favor of it. And it seems the overwhelming majority, if it hasn't been clear at this point, is against it.
30 seconds.
As a 38-year-old father of three of which we're here tonight, I'm constantly hearing adults speak about how children don't have any patience. They're constantly on their phones. Their kids are misbehaving, etc. What lesson are we teaching them by taking a piece of their childhood in the name of a few impatient adults? I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Marlene, did you want to speak?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Sure, just
Marlene
state your name and address for the record.
Marlene Genitazio, 400 Nelson Avenue.
Go ahead.
I wholeheartedly agree with the two young girls from Virginia who said, let's keep some green space in the park. I sit on my front porch. I can see the park. I can see the pickleball courts. I have friends that play there. So I live right next to that empty lot. And I would not be exaggerating if I say hundreds of people with baby strollers and on bicycles come through there, they cross Nelson and go over to the park. So it's very well used. As I say, I'm all in favor of pickleball, but I think Nelson Avenue is well covered for the sport. Thank you.
Thank you, Marlene.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, good evening. My name is Maureen O'Connell. I'm at 331 Maryville Avenue. As Bill Tortel and Steve Melchiori mentioned, we have an updated letter that now has 86 signatures from neighbors. I believe it's been emailed to you, but we wanted to make sure that you had the updated copy so you can see the 86 of your constituents who are opposed to this expansion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I read it on email.
Thank you.
Fred Allegrezza.
Hello, thank you. Just a second here. Yeah, this is Fred Allegrezza, 415 Nelson Avenue. And
Go ahead.
yeah, I would like to also express my concerns. I listened tonight about the budget shortfall, which fortunately we're in a great position to be able to fill that gap with surplus from prior years. But I would think it would be a little irresponsible. I mean, even after the tax, what I heard expressed was even after the tax increase, we're still not really generating a surplus. So increasing our debt with another $250,000 would seem a bit irresponsible. As for the pickleball courts, I thought it was a really nice addition. I thought it was a really good use. It gets used a lot, but I, on Nelson Avenue, frequently walk by And what I've observed is that there still is general capacity with just the 6 pickleball courts. There's enough for the Beach Haven area residents and surrounding areas. It only seems to get overused when there are tournaments where people come from 2 hours away that flood the courts. So taxing the taxing Beach Haven residents to support tournaments seems a bit unfair to me in terms of raising money and creating funds to expand it when it's really mostly for outside users. So if the one other thing I think money could be used for is the field is nice. I have nieces and nephews and folks coming down to our house. They love to play soccer there. They love to play ball there. It would be nice if the spent a little bit of money to finish the field a little bit smoother, so it was a little bit easier on the ankles when they want to play soccer. So anyhow, I just wanted to voice my concern over expanding the pickleball courts. I think you've heard that a number of people are not in favor of this. Just wanted to express it verbally. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fred.
Okay, we had somebody, yep.
I'm Denise Hodes. I live at 225 Berkeley. I have 2 questions, and I don't know if this is the place for this, but how does a committee get formed to take a look at all the recreational activities, the parks, the skate park or whatnot? Who puts that committee together? Is that something you do in session?
No, but if we decide to do that, we would probably try to get a diverse group of people. And there is a forum that we have here in the borough that if you'd like to serve on a committee, you can fill that out. And this is good for everybody to know. You fill that out and state what you're most interested in. So when we appoint somebody to the land use board or something like that, we do look at those forms. And that would be the best place to start. Then we would know who was interested. And my feeling, if we did it, we want a diverse committee. We don't want everybody that thinks exactly the same way.
Right, absolutely. So that they can take a look at all the green spaces and, say this would be best for this and this. My other question is, how do we get the meeting changed to a later date? Because everybody keeps bringing that up.
Right.
Can it be May?
Right.
Again, do you do this in closed session? I don't really know.
Well, we don't have to go into closed session. I think, before I left today, I was going to say, can we reschedule the vote on this to another time? This is a question I would have to ask Sherry.
Guys, thank you. Those
Yeah.
are my questions.
Thanks. Before we leave today. Anybody else? Yes.
We've got 3 on Zoom when you get a chance.
Okay, great. Okay.
You're on Zoom. We're up next.
What?
We're up next.
I don't want.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Adam Ellender, I'll be representing 100 South Bay Ave, the fire company. I just wanted to speak to a couple things tonight. I wanted to thank you guys. I know that stuff with raising taxes and everything, but I know that the fire company did ask for an increase in contributions. We have felt the hardship that everyone has. We haven't had an increase in our contributions in over 10 years. The prices of everything have gone up. A pair of boots is $650, in case anybody was aware. Tires are $1,000. We just bought a $1.9 million ladder truck. We're looking to buy a new engine in a few years. The last engine we bought was $600,000. The current rate for an engine is over $1 million. And it's a 3-year out project if you're buying one, which we are looking to do in the next few years. So I do applaud what you guys are doing. I know it's hard, but I know it's also a necessary evil in the days that we're living right now. The other thing is, Mayor Davis, Sherry, if you guys wouldn't mind, can I expand on the resolution 85 that was passed tonight?
Sure.
So resolution 85 was the agreement that the fire company came to with the help of the Borough of Beach Haven. What we're looking to do is to turn the sirens off at night from 10 p.m. until 7 a.m., which is what the current noise ordinance is. So this way it'll mirror exactly what the noise ordinance is, so that when it is quiet in Beach Haven, it will be quiet, including the fire company, unless there is a confirmed working structure fire or there's an emergency that is deemed needed that we need a siren to get volunteers to come and respond to. That was part of the agreement that we came to with the borough, and also with having the pagers on a new paging system that everyone's moving up in the county on. Having those pagers will give us that second means of notification that we need according to NFPA to be responding to calls. So this was, took a few years to get this done. It was a matter of timing, working with people within the town. I had a meeting with John Halperin from the Taxpayer Association, same thing, to go over, you know, the taxpayers wanted the sirens to be quieted during the nighttime and everything. So we had to come up with some kind of happy medium as far as public safety. You know, I don't want to weigh a life or property versus, you know, something that bothers people, but at the same time, I understand where our donations come from. And I also understand that you are taxpayers and you are the ones that are helping the community fund all these things. So I really appreciate everything you guys have done. You guys have done a great job. The last council also helped with this project and everything that's going on. We have a lot of irons in the fire right now, but everyone's doing a great job and I appreciate it. Thank
Well,
you.
we appreciate you and thank you very much. You do really. Thank you so much. All right, we
All
have
right.
some people on Zoom. right?
Yeah, Louis Shatini.
Hello, can you
Louis,
hear
go
me
ahead.
now?
Yes, there you go.
Okay, I want to thank you for taking my call. My name is Lou Scattini. I reside at 322 Leeward Avenue in Beach Haven. And I know that I've sent each of the council members a letter today as a follow-up to my letter back in February, expressing my disapproval of the ordinance or the expansion of the Nelson Avenue Park. The concern, of course, is the safety, but after listening to everybody speak tonight, my question is, what can we get a reaction from you, the council, as to all the questions that we've asked? Everybody makes their case and you say thank you, and that's the end of the discussion. So is there any possible way you can actually respond to the request of nearly 100 local residents who are against the proposed increase of the pickle courts? It makes no sense. The safety for the children involved is incomprehensible. The cars zooming up and down, trying to find a parking spot to get to their court time. We purchased the house 40 years ago because it was a very residential area with a great park for the kids. All our children and now our grandchildren participate in the park. It's a wonderful area. There is a lot of commercial space possibly available where you don't have to take away any grass fields. And it's just very frustrating to watch everybody come up, state their case, and you as mayor say, thank you, next. And is there any possible way to get a reaction from any of you? That's my first question. Response requested, please.
I'll answer you.
What do you want me to answer?
I can't really
I would
understand.
like to get a reaction from any of you as to whether or not
Okay.
you feel that we are being listened to, and you might make a decision based upon the tax-paying residents of the area.
Well, at the previous meeting, when this was the first reading, I did not vote for expansion of the pickleball courts at Nelson, and I still stand by that I am not for any expansion of the pickleball courts at Nelson Park. Does
I
that answer your
appreciate that.
question? Okay.
Yes, that does for you. How about the other members that are there? And obviously there are members who are not there, just a reaction so we know what's going on.
Okay, this is Colleen Lambert, and I do not support it. I feel that the town, by supplying 6 beautiful new state-of-the-art courts, has met their obligation. The rest of the island needs to step up. Some of the towns have, but compared to the square mileage, Beach Haven is still disproportionately far more. I made a few phone calls, and it seems that Manahawkin is going to expand their number of courts. The Love Ladies the Love Ladies Tennis Club is going to add a few. And Surf City is going to be adding a sum total of 2. They had 2, they're erasing them and putting in 4. And I think this is all a result of Beach Haven stopping the building, because as long as we were going to do it, there was no need for anybody else to do it. And they were spending their money on police cars, trash trucks, tidal valves, you name it. And we were building pickleball courts. And the pickleball community proudly boasted that they attracted people from all over the island and the mainland. And that's because Beach Haven had the only courts pretty much. Now we are spreading the wealth around as it should be. And I'm very happy to see the rest of them doing that. And I think Beach Haven has met its obligation as far as pickleball courts is concerned.
Thank you very much. Very nice. Happy to hear that. Anyone else going to answer?
I already made a statement. I made it very clear of how I thought earlier. I don't feel like I need to repeat it.
I'm sorry, I may have missed that because I got delayed getting into the computer.
Are we done?
No, I'm not.
You want to say, I'm having a very hard time hearing you on Zoom.
I believe we have 7 tennis courts right now. We have 6 pickleball courts. Pickleball is the fastest growing sport in America right now. It is absolutely multi-generational, men, women, children. The issue right now is the people that live around the existing pickleball courts, and where our initial focus was to add more pickleball courts. The reason that we tabled the vote tonight is because we're listening to everybody. There's obviously a lot of concern, and there's a lot of thought about whether that is the right spot or not. And so that's why we have tabled it, but I am in favor of more pickleball courts somewhere.
Thank you for all your responses. I do have a couple more questions, if I may.
Yeah, you only have like 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Okay. I think it would be a great venture, especially for the gentleman who spoke, I forget his name, to perhaps spend time creating an enclosed pickleball court on the mainland where he can charge people to use the courts and have a business endeavor that would be very profitable. It's been done elsewhere, and I don't think that Nelson Avenue is the place to do it. Thank you very much for your time and consideration, and I hope you do delay the next meeting because of all the holiday scheduling. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I appreciate all your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody in the, yes, please come forward.
Bob Swisher, 2209 West Avenue. So we've kind of heard the votes here. It's 2 to 3 against it. You need 4 votes to pass it. Do we really need to drag all these people back out here on April 10th or on whenever, if we already know that it's not going to pass?
I agree with Mike. I totally disagree with Colleen. I don't think one garbage truck costs more than all the pickleball courts, but
$265,000.
I don't think that, well, it depends on the garbage truck, but I do think pickleball is a upcoming sport. I would like to see more pickleball courts in Beach Haven. I don't particularly want them at Nelson Avenue. That's what we're talking about. I think we need to look at the whole picture of all the parks in town. And I made that very clear earlier.
You did, and I guess that's my point. Okay, so enough people have spoken up that Nelson Avenue is not the spot.
Right.
Everybody's coming to meetings. You're going to drag all these same people out to another meeting on April 10th when you don't have 4 votes to pass it.
Personally, I would rather hold off on this. I'd rather hold off on this until we have a better plan.
If that's the case, then don't put it on April 10th. Leave it off until you know we're going to do it. I mean, you drag us out here. Okay, everybody came here tonight to come to the meeting to protest it. Then you're not going to vote on it. So now you're going to drag everybody out on April 10th, and you're still not going to have it. Clearly, there are 2 no votes. Very clearly. You need
very
4,
clear.
You need
Yes.
4 to pass.
That's right. Very clear.
So
I can't really speak only for myself. I mean, I would like to push the date up farther if we do want to continue with this. The vote the vote as it states now is just encumbering money. It doesn't say that this money is going to go to pickleball courts at Nelson Avenue, and I think this needs to be discussed more. I would be much in favor of moving the vote up beyond, I mean, people want their kids here and that sort of thing. If they think that, I'm pretty certain that the vote will be negative regarding Nelson Avenue. But I'm not certain that the vote will be negative regarding the desire for more pickleball courts somewhere else in town.
You don't want to go to May 10th? Or,
But can we move? Can we
Sherry, can we go
make
to
Make a motion?
can we move this to a different time?
I'll make a motion, we move it to May 8th. I would make the motion, we move it to May 8th.
Okay. So we're pushing it to May 8th. That doesn't mean that we won't vote yes to encumbering money for pickleball courts.
So you're talking about ordinance 2023-06 bond ordinance. You're making a motion to carry to May 8th. Is there a second?
Is there a second on that?
Thank you. And I'm going to take a quick roll. Mr. Batista.
Yes.
Mrs. Ball Miller.
Yes.
Ms. Lambert.
Yes.
Mayor Davis.
Yes.
Thank you.
As long as the two of you stick to it, we'll be fine.
And I just wanted to make a reminder that this is a public comment, not public back and forth.
I know.
If Bruce was here, that's what he'd be saying. So that's why we don't answer, because it's a public comment. We're here to listen.
I just want to clarify something because I spoke with our head of public works just today because we just got a new trash truck and it was $265,000. Borough of Beach Haven just spent that on a trash truck.
Tony Madureira.
This Ashley Madureira, 5 Ocean Street. I just
Okay.
wanted to add our voice to the obvious consensus that expanding the pickleball courts on Nelson Avenue is unnecessary. I also want to express my support for better or looking into expanding the green space or improving our current green space that we have in Beach Haven. We don't have a lot. It is utilized. I wouldn't want to see it get any smaller. So I definitely have a support for that. And if you form a committee, I think that's a great idea. And I would be in support of that as well. My only question is with the skate park, what percentage of Welch Field is going to be utilized for that skate park? How much of Welch Field will we lose if we do that?
Jamie already stated 2.5% or something like that. Go ahead, Jamie.
Right,
I thought this was not going to be back and forth.
Yeah, it's not back and
So
forth.
this is going to be
You're
public
right.
discussion. That's the format.
It's discussion.
Let's stay with the format.
Yeah, we're not doing back and forth. We did bring this up at the last meeting. It's all public. Go back and look at the minutes.
Go ahead with your comment.
Any more comments here?
Ashley, anything else you wanted to comment?
No, thank you. No, thank you.
Okay.
Rich Conaway, 330 Ocean Street. This is in reference to Walsh Field. The ball field, if we add any more there, it really hurts the ball field. It was used to be used regularly for softball games and baseball. And if they encroach anymore on that field, it will pretty much make Walsh Field as a baseball and softball field unusable. And I think that's something we wanted to look at. And looking at the skate park, if it were to go on the west side of the boat ramp, I think there's enough room to get the skate ramp there. That would, I think, make it better for people there, and the fact that it would inhibit less interest of what's going to be done at Walsh Field. I have one other question. With a fire company, I've been a member since 1969, and turning the sirens off during the day, I think it's a good idea.
During the night?
I mean, during the night.
Yeah, thank you.
And that's a lot, it does bother a lot of people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Peter Spiata.
Hello, Peter Spiata, 226 Coral Street.
Go ahead.
And my, one thing I want to bring up, we were talking about open space and whatnot, and living on Coral Street, you know, there are numerous times throughout the summer that I see a medevac helicopter landing in Walsh Field. And I've seen it also up in Surf City in a field as well. So as we look to take over some green space in these large areas, and if Debbie Whitcraft was on the line, I don't know if she still is, but can appreciate the fact that that's used on a regular basis during the summer. And something to be considered. I haven't been in, you know, I just learned about this skate park in Walsh Field this weekend. And I was shocked, but anyway, that's that one. And then, you know, the pickleball court, I echo what people have said on that. I don't need to spend any more time on that. We have sufficient amount. It's, you know, it's there for the community to use. I mean, we're not if we wanted to be in the competitive sport and be a venue for that, then maybe look at Silver Sun or take over, you know, Queen City East and Queen City West and use that as well as possibilities. Just some of my thoughts on that. And then just one thing, Mike Batiste, you were saying about, you know, let's stop with the back and forth. Being relatively new to this venue and talking in these things, at what point does that back and forth take place?
We're not doing back and forth, so I'm really having trouble hearing folks on Zoom. I'm sorry.
Mr. Spiata, I think you can always reach out to the council via email. That's a good way to communicate with them, and their addresses are on the website.
But I just want to, Mr. Spiata, at the last meeting, there was a whole presentation, and the health and concern is my top priority. And I spoke with Chief Adam Ellender of the fire department, and we discussed that there is plenty of room for the medevac for the helicopters. There's actually room for 2. So that was definitely a concern that was answered. So if you wanted to watch that Zoom meeting to educate yourself on any of maybe some of the questions were answered at that meeting, or you can please email me and I can get back to you and we have a conversation.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
Michelle Swisher, 2209 West Avenue. As I sit here and listen to everyone, I find it interesting that I hear nobody talking in favor of pickleball except you and you. There's a room full of people against it, yet you still are pushing this idea. And I don't understand why. It's beyond me.
Well, this isn't a back and forth, and I'll be glad to answer you after the meeting. Okay? Thank you.
Well, there's one other thing. I'm a retired chief financial officer. I know that bond ordinances, once they're passed, are authorizations to spend. You need nobody's input, public input, anything, once that bond ordinance is done. If you decide not to use it, you can do that, but you can also decide that you're going to use it, especially since it says Nelson Avenue. So you can pass that ordinance and you can say that you're not going to do Nelson Avenue, but it's in writing that you can do Nelson Avenue.
Correct.
Yes. So by you saying it's just encumbering, it's not. It's an authorization to spend.
Correct. Anybody else?
Sharon Ryan.
Hi, thank you guys for your time and for hearing us. I know that you mentioned that pickleball and you've heard everyone speaking against pickleball on.
Sharon, what's your address, please?
Oh, sorry, 333 Pearl Street.
Okay, go ahead.
And just knowing that you don't want pickleball, or we don't want pickleball, and you have heard the consensus of people will speak to that. But until you have another place figured out, no one is really speaking up because we don't really know what we're speaking up against or for. So I think it's important that there's some kind of agenda or something that's proposed before the meeting, and that there's time given also before the meeting that we can prepare an argument or voice our concerns and actually look at the situation objectively. So that's just my thought on that. I also wanted to mention, my husband's a pilot for Delta. He said he would not want to land on that field with that between the high tension wires and the winds that come through there. And now you're going to add a fence with the skateboard park, or the proposal there. He thought it was not as safe. So that's it. But thank you.
Sure, thanks.
Yeah, you can come back. No, talking to the microphone, sorry.
It's Corinne again. So with her having.
You have to say your name and address again, sorry.
331 Maryvale, Corinne O'Connell. With Kitty, Miss Snyder having to step off, like a lot of really important conversation happened this evening. So
she can read the conversation. The minutes are very detailed.
And so like in her.
And she can also, you're being recorded as well.
I just want to make sure that she does read.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she will. She's
Great.
very conscientious.
Jason Casamano.
Good evening, Jason Cosmano, 412 Leeward.
Go ahead.
How are you? Thank you. I echo what everyone has talked about with the pickleball court, and I understand also this is not a back and forth session. But the one thing I've noticed in being on some of these meetings, and I respect all the work that's being done by the accounting and all that. It seems our finances are a little in trouble. So my question is twofold. Is it wise for the borough to be spending money on a pickleball court or a skateboard park at this time with outstanding debt of $7 to $10 million? And my other question, which I know I will not get an answer on, but a thought for suggestion, and maybe you have explored this. In the last presentation, the CFO was discussing the substantial increase in the borough's health benefits plan. And I'm just curious to wonder if anyone in the borough has explored leaving the state health benefits plan and going to a private health insurance plan, since the state health benefits plan has increased 6%, and the borough could possibly save a lot of money by switching to a private health insurance plan, keeping things all in place. I understand contracts with unions and PBAs, but I think it's something the borough should explore in the future to possibly save some money for the borough. That's all.
Thank you.
Yeah, we will look at all options. Thank you.
Anybody else?
More.
You have more people on Zoom? Okay.
Barb Kona.
Can you hear me, Sherry?
Go ahead.
There we go. Hi, Barb Kono, 100 Northwest Avenue. I had a question. Somebody mentioned Veterans Park, and it was my understanding that a couple of years ago, someone made $1 million donation to fix up Veterans Park. And
That never happened.
That
Okay.
it didn't happen.
Yeah, it didn't come through.
So I remember that there was discussion about forming a 501c3 at the time, so that people who wanted to donate into a fund for parks and recreation, I guess, they could do that into a nonprofit. Was that ever something that took place, or?
It's in the works.
Oh, it's in the works. And so the
Yeah.
donation was never made. It was just discussed. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anybody else on Zoom?
Jean Bailey. Jean Bailey,
Okay, now can you hear me?
yes, there you go.
Okay, great. Gene Bailey, 201 Pearl Street. Thank you very much for having this meeting tonight. I've been sort of quiet on this matter. I had what was at a few meetings back a while ago. And I have a couple of things that I just like to present. Number one, we are concerned about budget a little bit. All right. You'd mentioned tightening our belts. I think the town also has to consider about tightening our belts. And I think any expansion of skateboard or pickleball facilities is considered discretionary spending at this point. And I think with all the anxiety and the divisiveness in the community, it's caused by one thing. It's pickleball. It's not Morrison's right now. It's divided our community and consumed all of our time and your time that could be used for other endeavors. From what I've gathered from tonight's meeting and back and forth, the way I look at it is that we are not in any position or ready to make a decision on pickleball or skateboard parks until we come up with a full plan recreational for the entire community, which includes open parks, open space, the need for it, the cost. But right now, we have no plan and it's just dividing our community. And I don't know if we have to put ourselves through that. My suggestion is this, and a couple of the residents have brought this up. We have it on the agenda for April. All right, it's getting moved to May. I'd like for us to consider moving it off the agenda entirely and tabling it until we have a community-wide committee to review the entire open space and recreational needs of the community. There's no need for us to go killing ourselves and dividing our community more. We know how the residents feel over at Maryville. I think by putting a good committee with the school, phys ed people, recreation people, county people, I think we can come up with a plan that can satisfy everybody, because pickleball has really divided this community in the last 2 years. And I don't think we need it, especially when we're not ready for it. And it shows from the meeting and the comments that people made. That's all I really got to say. I would hope that you would consider tabling it until we have a full town committee. And that may take 9 months. It may take a year. We're not going to get it resolved in 1 month or 2 months. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you.
Anybody in the audience? Anybody else on Zoom?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
My name is Steve Jusick, 408 Leeward Avenue. I would second the comments that were just made. I think that makes more sense than anything I've heard about this question of adding additional pickleball courts to the Nelson Avenue Park. And I don't understand why Beach Haven should have 12 pickleball courts, far greater number than any place else. And we get, by putting 6 more, you would have a tremendous additional influx of cars, traffic, and people and it would impact the green space of the park. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I appreciate your taking the time to listen to us all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Anybody on Zoom? So I'll close the floor to public comment. And so it's council remarks at the moment, I guess. Do you want to start, Colleen?
Okay, well, I don't have anything else to add. Said enough tonight. Happy St. Patty's Day and to be continued. Thank you.
Jamie?
Yes, thank you for coming, participating. Thank you for your emails. I listened to them and I apologize I didn't respond the last few days. I was away with my family, but I will respond as soon as I can. As far as Councilwoman Snyder recommended maybe putting some teeth into our architectural advisor committee, I would like to, look into that as well. We have a lot of development happening on Bay Avenue, also in the Marine Commercial District. So it might be a good idea. We do have our guidelines. They should be ready any day, our business guidelines that we've been working on for the past year. So we do have a draft that we'll be presenting to you as soon as they're finished, and I'm anticipating that within the next month. So thank you.
Mike?
Thank everybody for coming out. Obviously, we are listening. I am personally listening to all of your concerns. And tonight we had a good meeting, and thank you all for coming out.
And I'll just say that I do appreciate everybody coming out, and I do listen as well. And I think it's very important. It's wonderful to see people that concerned about their town to come out and talk, and that's the important thing. So thank you. And I also want to say, also, I feel we need, I'm excited about this review committee for the downtown and the commercial area. So thank you for pushing that forward. So that's about it. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
Oh, thank you, Sherry, for your expertise tonight. I'm blowing my mind again.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.